She always loved having her hair done.
Brian Wilson's mother, Vera, always hated the cold.
My mom talking about how horribly cold the Saskatchewan winters were, and that she vowed that she would never go back to Saskatchewan in the wintertime, and she never did.
And so he was shocked when one morning, 2 years ago, police told him his mother had died overnight, outside in the cold, steps from her retirement home.
Why was it important to you to talk to us today?
Because I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I don't want another person, another family member, to have a police officer come and say, your mother or your father died because they froze to death, because they left the building, and regardless, in the middle of the afternoon, middle of the night, and froze. And I don't want that to happen to anyone else.
How could this happen in a place that was supposed to take care of her? Vera Wilson lived at Seasons Retirement Home in Brantford, Ontario, in the second-floor suite. According to video surveillance, she exited through this hallway through an unalarmed door at 10:28 p.m. It locked behind her. Last March, Brian was allowed to view the retirement home surveillance tape at the Brantford police station.
It was a windy, cold day, and she fell, and she slid to where some bushes are, and she literally was not able to get up. She stayed there for about roughly 17 minutes in the snow. It was -10 with wind chill, and she had just her inside clothes on. She had no coats, no boots, no gloves. We do see her briefly once getting up, but then she, after that 17 minutes, and then she fell again after only making a few steps. And then we just saw her literally crawl down the along the sidewalk until she disappeared from the cameras.
A geriatric and long-term care death review committee report tells us the rest of the story. Staff at the home didn't realize she was missing until 2 a.m. They notified a manager and searched inside the home twice. At 3 a.m., another manager was notified and drove around the building and neighboring streets. At 4:01 a.m., staff called police. At precisely 4:20, staff and officers found Vera's body here, curled in a fetal position, partially under a bush and covered in snow. Brian found her glasses a couple of days later in the same area, neatly folded. Those images have weighed heavily on him since, and so has something else.
She was never, ever reported as being a wanderer, or I guess you could say even a flight risk. Like, none of that was ever reported to me by any retirement home.
The committee that reviewed Vera Wilson's death noted that although she showed a decline in a tendency to wander, it seemed there was no discussion with the family on moving the decedent to a safer environment. The committee made several recommendations for the retirement home, like all exit doors should have an auditory alarm, and to make sure as soon as people are missing, the surveillance video is checked and police are notified immediately, and to ensure as dementia progresses, the residents' needs are regularly reassessed.
It really is the goodwill of the sector to try to comply with whatever recommendations are made.
Lawyer Jane Meadus is with the Advocacy Center for the Elderly. She says it's important for families to remember retirement homes are different from long-term care homes.
Retirement homes are tenancies, and that people do have the freedom to come and go. And so that if the person needs that kind of monitoring, retirement homes may not be the appropriate place.
So how often does this happen? Most provinces don't track this specific type of incident, but we reviewed 53 Quebec coroners' reports since 2019 involving elderly people who froze to death. 11 cases involved people with dementia or some form of cognitive impairment who were found outside retirement or long-term care homes. Those reports found many of the same issues with unalarmed doors and the need for more resident support. Some families go public with their stories. In 2022, 83-year-old Kay Green froze to death when she wandered outside her Alberta care home. And it's not the first time something like this has happened at a Seasons home. In January of 2016 in Owen Sound, Ontario, a resident found lying on the ground, steps from the retirement home. Like Vera, he had been there for hours. Only he was in a winter coat and survived.
This is going to happen more and more and more because as our population ages, there's going to be more people living with dementia.
Dr. Samir Sinha is the head of geriatrics at Mount Sinai. He says by 2030, 1 million Canadians will be living with dementia, and 60% of those who have dementia experience some level of wandering.
That's a huge number of people who potentially could be in a situation like this. So I'm not being alarmist. I'm just saying this is going to happen more and more and more with time. And how do we actually prevent any of this from happening in the first place? And there's so many things that we can do if we're more appropriately proactive around issues like this.
We asked Seasons multiple times for an interview. We also asked them to answer our questions about the recommendations in the report and if they implemented them. They declined, citing among other things the privacy of their employees and Vera Wilson's family. In an email, they said, "The safety and well-being of our residents remain our top priority." Brian Wilson left with so many unanswered questions about his mother's care, like what the home's protocols were and whether they were followed, is now looking to the courts for answers.
We received no other communication from the retirement home by the senior administration in reference to the incident at all, even a sorry for your loss comment. We have not received that of any sort. So that also surprises me. Why not? Without even taking any type of responsibility or liability, but just say, we're sorry that your mom passed away. That's never happened.
What would that have meant to you if someone from the home had at least...
Well, at least they cared.